And people come to me and they say, well, I joined Lifestyles because I know you guys do deals. I never could get myself to do a deal before. I think I was just scared to do it. I don't think it's really fear that's holding people back. It's just the inability to actually evaluate a deal and know what to pay for it to make it a good deal. Because people, if you see a deal and you know it's a good deal, you're going to do the deal, right? For instance, let's say that the president of the De Beers Diamond Company comes walking through the door right now. And he's got one of those attaché cases, those silver attaché cases that you see in the spy movies with the chain, and he's got the handcuff, and he's got it clamped to his arm. And he comes walking up here, and he's got 2 big bodyguards with him. And he puts it up here on the podium, on the table here, and he opens it up, pulls out a diamond the size of my fist. And he says, this diamond has recently been appraised for $2 million. But I'm going to sell it to you folks tonight for $10,000. How many of you would have to go home and sleep on that decision? You know that's a good deal, right? You would do it because you have already knowledge about the value of a diamond. You also have the credibility of the president of the company telling you it was just appraised for $2 million. And that's the position we put a lot of our members in, is they can go out there and look at these deals and in 10 or 15 minutes know what to pay for it to make it a good deal. And again, if you guys don't use us, find somebody else to mentor you. Find somebody to teach you this business. I did it completely backwards when I used to start, and I've lost tens and tens of thousands of dollars doing deals where I just didn't know what I was doing. And again, I was out there, I guess I was egotistical at the time. I thought I know everything about everything. I've got Carlton Sheets, Ron LeGrand, Russ Whitney. I've got everybody else, here in my cubby hole. Again, find somebody real, live, flesh and bone that can help you do this stuff. Again, consistent and concise dialogue, we talked about that. Now, Lifestyles Unlimited, I just want to give you guys a little bit more of a background. You probably heard me earlier in there. We've been around since 1990. Now, a lot of people may not have heard of us because we basically do most of our advertising on the radio. Maybe you've heard our radio shows. We've got several different ones. But we didn't do a lot of email blasts. We actually didn't partner up with a lot of the REI groups before either. And I'm not sure exactly why that is, but now we're actually getting out there and we're letting people know who we are. And we've got between 8,000 to 10,000 members between Dallas and Houston and in San Antonio. So we're a huge group, and I guess maybe they felt that they were so huge before they didn't need the other groups to partner with. But I think this is actually a great synergistic relationship that we have going on right now with everybody that's here. We're going to continue doing this stuff from here on. I think it's great for them. I think it's great for us. We were able to hopefully get some people to come in here because of our radio promotions and because of our email blast out to our members as well. So again, it's all about the networking. And this really is a people business. Del Walmsley gets on the radio all the time, our founder, and he always says that real estate is easy. It's people that are difficult. And that's the truth. Real estate, I mean, if you just go out there and find a system that works, like Robert Kiyosaki tells you to do, and you just replicate that system again and again and again, it's not rocket science. You don't have to relearn anything. You just have to re-implement what you've already done. But you've got to go out there and you've got to network and start hanging out with people and hanging around with like-minded people. Now, of course, we do single family, we do multifamily. I talked about the fact that we walk people through what we call the natural progression of the real estate investor. We start them out typically, a lot of times we'll have people buying properties, no money, no credit, up front. In fact, our 2-day class that I was talking about earlier, we actually walk you through that. Like on Saturday morning you come in, and Brad Sumrock, who will be doing our teaching here, or Del Walmsley, one of the two, he'll actually walk you through to buy your first house, no money, no credit. Then by the end of the afternoon on Saturday, he'll have you into 15 or 20 single family properties, and you'll actually be running a business. Then you come back on Sunday, he teaches you how to roll those 15 to 20 single family properties into your first multifamily deal. Then by the end of Sunday afternoon, he'll have you into a much larger deal where you maybe went out amongst our group or amongst other groups and you're raising capital to take down maybe 500 units. All right, so that's that natural progression I'm talking about. And again, we're in all 3 cities, but we're also national now. We're launching a national product. I think that's maybe one of the reasons they're reaching out to everybody else. And what we teach can be used anywhere. It's not geographically centric. You can actually go out there in any city. We've got members in other states now, and basically most of our vendors are here locally. So people who are outside of this area can't really use our vendors and stuff, but they can still benefit from what we do. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions for a little bit. If you guys have any questions about anything I said or about lifestyles or anything else, go ahead and fire away. Yeah, go ahead.
You're working with realtors. Are they able to send you the kind of deal you can make money on if you're like a recapper? Because
For a flip, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned earlier, it's not a great time to flip properties. I still do it. I think most of the investors probably still do it, but you have to be very, very careful because it's really tough to sell a property right now. In fact, I just did a deal in Farmers Branch where I bought it and it looked, on paper, it looked like a fantastic deal. But I was going to do it as a flip because I didn't necessarily want to keep a rental property in that area. Well, it sat on the market for about 4 or 5 months, which completely blew me away because before that the market was doing great in that sub area. But sometimes sub areas just go cold. And so it's really tough right now to do that. Buying and holding right now is a great strategy because you're seeing, first of all, interest rates right now are lower than they've ever been in my entire lifetime, especially for investor loans. Also, you've got an unprecedented number of foreclosures that are hitting the market that are suppressing the values of these properties, so many times you can buy them for lower than you ever could have in my lifetime. And I just turned 41, so that's saying something. But yeah, you can absolutely still go out and flip. Just again, be careful, know your numbers, know how to do your evaluations, and yeah, they'll send you those kind of deals. Anybody else? Yeah?
I don't know, maybe the real question, flip or hold, do you actually work with realtors that can get you 70% ARV or less kind of deals?
Yeah. Yeah, otherwise I don't pull the trigger on something.
Right, right. So these are realtors, not wholesalers, or you classify them kind of the same? Or?
Right. Well, I put wholesalers and realtors in probably 2 separate categories. Wholesalers are going to be flipping you a property and they're going to want a fee for doing that, which they should get. And then realtors, of course, are going to flip you a house, but they're going to get commission out of it as well. So you still got some closing costs on the house. But still, just know your numbers, go out there. Tell them, hey, this is my minimum. I need to buy this property for 60 cents on the dollar or 70 cents or whatever it is you need to get into it. And the rehab can only be 10% of that. But just as long as you know your numbers and you send it out there, these realtors can find you the deals. The problem comes in when people call up and say, hey, I want a foreclosure property or I want a good deal. Well, what does that look like for you? I need to know your area, bed, bath, garage, square feet, how much rehab are you willing to do, how much money do you have to put down on it. I mean, everybody's got a unique situation, so you got to let them know exactly what that is. Yeah?
Home Investors has a formula for when you buy a property, only 70% of retail value less repair costs.
Okay.
What is a formula for the budget that you should be looking at on a property like and like 200,000 above? But my budgets are like between 50 and 80,000. So what do you really like to see that ideal range in? For the rehab portion of it, you mean? Yeah.
I really don't care as long as the whole thing is still under my maximum investment. If I can go out and buy a property, and let's say I buy a property that's going to be worth $100,000, the ARV is $100,000, but it's going to cost me $60 to buy it and $10 to rehab it. To me, that's the same thing as if it cost me $40 to buy it and $30 to rehab it. I like large rehabs. I don't mind rehabbing. So again, that's going to be a personal choice. Some of you may not want to deal with all the contractors and all the issues. You may want to find a property that's already, just cosmetic cleanup, what we call a C-hab. It's not a full-blown rehab. You just fix the stuff you can see, paint and carpet and lights, and that's about it. But me, I'll go in. I'll do garage conversions. I'll go in and I'll do a foundation problem, roof problems. The one thing, well, 2 things I'll stay away from. One are add-ons on a property. It is very tough, even for your inspectors and your appraisers and everybody else, to go in, look at a house, and figure out how something is attached to the house. You have no idea, really, unless you tear that thing open, of figuring out, okay, did the person who did that add-on, did they know what the hell they were doing? All right? So you got to be careful with that kind of stuff. And then pools are the other thing I don't jack with either. But again, from your realtors. Your realtors can
have everything.
That's true.
I am one.
And that's actually a good point. A lot of the rental properties, a lot of the comps that you're going to get from rental properties, most people, myself included, I don't list my houses in the MLS for rent. I put a sign in the yard. A lot of times we're finding, our members are finding, that they have their properties leased out before they even put a sign in the yard, before the paint's even dried. So they never have to list it in the MLS. Because we're the exact opposite of slumlords, basically. We fix everything in a property that could possibly break in a year-long lease before we move a tenant in. And when people come by and they see that, and they see how nice they are, and they see that we're renting them for less than everybody else, man, they lease themselves. But you're right, it's hard to get rental comps. And one thing you can do is...
The answer is how?
The answer is you go out, and I call on all the signs. Yeah. And that's the one time I'll drive around and actually do work. is I'm trying to find rental comps because, again, you're right, it's very tough to find those. Or I know other investors that have properties in the area. I'll just call them as well. Okay. I know it's hot, guys. I appreciate you guys hanging in. I don't know why.
You said you don't mess with pools. Does that mean you won't evaluate a house with a pool for a potential deal?
I will, but I'll typically jackhammer it up and fill it in for a rental. Now, if it's a flip, absolutely. You know, if it's an area that everybody has pools and I can actually get the money out of it, then I'll keep the pool, I'll maintain it, fix it, whatever. But if it's going to be a lease, you don't want the liability for insurance purposes. Also, you don't want to pay extra for your insurance because you have a pool. And I mean, even if you lease out to some tenants that are great people and they're very responsible and maybe they don't have any kids, Johnny next door is going to hop the fence and he's going to kill himself in your pool. All right? And I just don't want that kind of liability. In fact, the last apartment I bought, even for my apartment, I jackhammered in the pool and filled it in just because it was an area that there was no way that I could maintain who was coming and going from this place. It was kind of a C, actually it was a D property when I bought it and we moved it up to a C. But yeah, another question? Yeah.
Quick question for you. There's been times I'll see a sign in the yard and I'll call the realtor about the house and I'll ask him about the property a little bit. And the first thing they'll ask me is, are you working with a realtor? And I'll say, yeah, I have a realtor I'm working with. And the conversation gets cut off right there. They just say, well, I got to go.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's kind of odd that a realtor thinks that you got to work with them solely, but realtors can't work with an individual solely. It's kind of a one-way deal.
Now, are you under a buyer's representation agreement with a buyer's agent, or?
No, I'm just picking up the phone, but when I write to the realtor about the property, they say, are you currently working with a realtor? I said, yeah, I work with a realtor. And right then, the conversation just goes cold.
Okay.
Wrong question.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it's kind of tricky. If you're working with a realtor and you want that realtor to represent you as your buyer when you go in and buy this property from that other listing agent, then yeah, they're probably not going to work with you because they're not going to get much of a commission out of it. But if they're smart and they actually know what they're doing, they're going to give you the information anyway because you're going to buy their house possibly, and they're going to get a commission from that. So I'm not sure why they would, I guess, just completely shut you down.
Well, if you're a small investor and you got 20 realtors working with, somebody's, I mean, who do you know to list the house with? I mean, you get 20 different realtors you're working with, you're only buying 5 or 10 houses a year. I mean, somebody's not going to get.
And you're selling your own properties, you mean?
Well, if you're going to sell, you relist it to the realtor, somebody's not going to get the listing.
Yeah.
Everybody wants a relisting. They want to buy it, they want the relisting.
Yep.
You can't relist it with everybody.
Yeah, and you'll want to, I mean, you want to spread it around. I mean, whoever's sending you the great deals,
Right.
they're going to get my listing.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
Right.
The realtor didn't ask, do you have a buyer's rep agreement?
Right, exactly. Yeah, if you don't have a buyer's rep agreement, then they should work with you. They shouldn't have any problem with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, any more questions? Yeah, go ahead.
That 70% you were talking about, you wrap into that sales cost. I always find, people do things, but their sales costs are expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, so do you make sure you have those sales costs wrapped into that 70%?
I do, yeah. I always take that into consideration because that could be a pretty sizable number.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I see people that I think are discounting that, but I'm just sort of wondering where the water level is on that with a lot of people.
Yeah, I try to get into a property all said and done no more than 70%. I want a 30% equity cushion in any property that I do.
After you're done with that, you would possibly put a loan on it at that time.
Correct. If I'm going to loan it out, if I'm going to rent it out and put a loan on it?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're at 70%, unless you're doing all these cash, at some point you have to put a mortgage on it.
Correct. Yeah, in fact, a lot of times when we buy properties, now what I use is I use private money. We've got a lot of members that have money, but they don't have the time to go out there and actually do deals. So they're willing to loan their money because they've got it in a 401k that just turned into a 201k, and they want to put it somewhere else. So we'll use that money, but then you can go out there and get it refinanced, with a conventional lender as well down the road. But again, just make sure it still cash flows. Make sure it makes sense. But yeah, good question. Yes, sir.
So when you're renting out property and you're going back to refinance, what sort of amortization schedule do you go for? 20 years, 30 years, 15?
If you're going to rent the property out, go out 50 years if you can. Yeah, get that cash flow up. Do whatever you can do to get your payment down and get the cash flow up. Unless you're going to be somebody who wants to hold the property forever and you're going to keep it for 30 years or whatever, then you can do a 15-year if it still cash flows. And again, it gets back to that unique individual situation. If you don't need the cash flow and you're looking for long-term equity build and you're just going to hold it forever, then maybe you go out and do a 15-year note. But for us, we try to do 30-year notes because we want cash flow. All right? So